What's up, Saints fans? The New Orleans Saints take down the Los Angeles Chargers in preseason week 2 by a final score of 22-17. I'm your host, Trace Girouard. Thank you for joining us in today's post-game winners and losers recap. First of all, I want to talk about the game, kind of what happened, and give some stats, some analytics, and all that kind of stuff. And then I'm going to break down 3 winners and 3 losers from today's game. So you see right here, here's the scoreboard, here's the final, here's how things shook out for New Orleans and Los Angeles. Obviously, Hurricane Hillary was a problem. Before the game even started, you had a hurricane, you had an earthquake, tropical storm. I mean, it was just a mess. But you know who cleaned up the mess? The New Orleans Saints. 22-17, Jameis Winston absolutely wheeling and dealing. He had 13 receptions, or 13 for 21 on a completion to attempts, 169 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Jake Haener, 11 for 17, 118 yards, 0 touchdowns for 0 interceptions. Kendre Miller, he got involved, 10 carries for 23 yards and a touchdown. And in terms of receiving production as well, Kendre Miller also had 3 receptions for 36 yards. He had a nice 27-yard wheel route that he ran. Winston just absolutely put it right exactly where he needed to. Nice diving catch that eventually led to him rushing for a touchdown. So we'd love to see that out of Kendre Miller. Shaq Davis continues to stand out. 3 receptions, 63 yards. A.T. Perry, 3 receptions for 22 yards. Jontre Kirkland, 3 receptions for 59 yards. And Lynn Bowden, 2 receptions for 37 yards. So you got to love that kind of production. Saints fans, type "eat that W" in the chat because, you know how we did. We got that bowl. Got that dub sauce. We're sprinkling some dub season, and we're going to give it a nice little stir. And we're eating dubs all night long. So type "eat that W" if you're pumped up about the Saints win. Let's get into today's preseason week 2 winners and losers. So how you see it? Obviously, 3 winners. We're going to have 3 losers. And I want to start off with Jaylon Smith, one of the newest members of the New Orleans Saints. Smith, let me tell you what. He brought it. He freaking brought it today. 3 tackles and 1 pass breakup. And the stats may be like, I mean, what do you mean he brought it? Like, what do you mean? Like, it's all right. But let me tell you something. Jaylon Smith, he did a lot of good things today. He brought a Pop-Tart kind of hit. He popped the son of a gun right in the face. Had a great hit. That led to the Chargers not converting on a 3rd and long, or on a 3rd and medium, if you will. Forced a 4th down, made the Chargers have to punt the ball away. I loved seeing that out of Jaylon Smith. He got out there to the absolute exterior of the field, was on the sideline and had a pass breakup. These are things that I love to see from a guy like Jaylon Smith. He is a phenomenal player, and he's a guy that obviously the Saints had a needed linebacker. Anthony Barr was out there. Miles Jack was out there, who's now retired. Just do what you want with that information. But Jaylon Smith is the guy that Saints bring in, and he performs well. He was getting work with the ones this past week at training camp in the joint practices with the Chargers, and I'm glad to see that Jaylon Smith continue to capitalize off the opportunity he had here with the Saints. And I also wanted to give a shout out to another guy who did the same thing, making the most out of an opportunity, Malcolm Roach, the defensive tackle out of Texas. Roach, he is a sneaky player to be an absolute breakout candidate for the Saints. All 4 of his tackles were meaningful tackles. They came at very big times in the game. They came at points where you needed to make a stop. They came at opportunities when you wanted to see the most out of your defensive line. Malcolm Roach, he did that. Not only did he get 4 tackles, but he brought along a ton of pressure. He brought along a ton of QB pressures. He was getting after the quarterback. He was getting feisty in the backfield. Malcolm Roach is a player that I expect a lot out of this season. I would love to see a big jump in the right direction for Roach because he's been a player over the past few years who's just continued to just show that he is an asset on this team. So shout out to Malcolm Roach for being a winner this week. And maybe biggest shout out of all, Shaq Davis. Shaq Davis, excuse my French, looked frickin' incredible today. 3 receptions, 63 yards, 21 yards per catch. That is not a made-up number. This stat line is 100% legit. He had 5 targets today, a long of 42 yards. Shaq Davis had the opportunity at one point to come down with a beautiful touchdown catch. And what I will say, it was a little high. Defense made a really good play on the ball. But Shaq Davis, he's a big-time winner for me because, spoiler alert, Bryan Edwards looked like shit. Bryan Edwards looked like shit. Let's just call it how it is. I think that Shaq Davis, as a UDFA, has a phenomenal opportunity here to make the roster because some of these vets, James Washington, we saw him cut earlier this week. Bryan Edwards, I hate to say it, he was a guy that I thought could have beat out Traquan Smith. He might not make the roster. He might get cut this week. Shaq Davis, though, if he's on the practice squad, that's some bad news for the Saints because another team can go and sign him. So I just want to show some love to Shaq Davis for having an absolutely phenomenal game. And guys, I encourage you to subscribe, turn on your notifications, and hang out with us all throughout the season. We went live for the first 2 preseason games. We're going to be live for pretty much every single regular season game throughout the entire season. If you want the best Saints content by Saints fans for Saints fans, I encourage you to subscribe, turn on your notifications. That way you never miss a thing. News, rumors, updates, live coverage, everything. We got you covered, so be sure to subscribe. So let's get into the losers. Lewis Kidd. It's weird to put an offensive tackle here as a loser because, quite honestly, the offensive line needs depth. And I'm not going to sit here and say that depth is a massive concern for me. But when I look at the offensive line for the Saints, having Lewis Kidd in that lineup, especially as a third-string left tackle, man, Landon Young, I hope he steps up. Man, I hope Trevor Penning never has to deal with some injury issues because Lewis Kidd had multiple penalties. He had multiple issues. He was just getting kind of torn up. And honestly, I don't want to call him a loser, but he just didn't look that great today. So Trevor Penning, step it the F up because I don't want to see Lewis Kidd take a lot of snaps after today's game. I would love to be proven wrong, though. Let me let the record show I'd love to be proven wrong. One thing I have yet to be proven wrong about, Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen, and I'm censoring myself as much as possible, figure it the F out. 14 penalties for 141 yards is inexcusable. I don't care when the penalties came in. I don't care how many of the penalties seem whack. I don't care how many of the penalties could have been overturned or could have been wrong. I don't care. Stop letting your team be in that position. Penalties are a coaching issue. No discipline, no awareness. That is a coaching issue. If the Saints can't figure out the penalty problem, the Saints will lose games. This team has so much talent. They have so many quality players. They have a roster that's built to win a lot of meaningful games. And I'm not just talking in the regular season. I'm talking the postseason as well. If Dennis Allen can't get this team shit together and figure it out with the penalties, the Saints will not win more than 10 games. That's just how it is. The biggest enemy for the Saints, the biggest downfall for this team is going to be themselves and coaching. If Dennis Allen can't figure it out, this team ain't going nowhere. And I'll say this right now. Call me effing crazy. If Dennis Allen, Pete Carmichael, they can't figure it out, they can't get their ish together, I'm going to do one of these. I'm going to pick up my phone. If I'm Mickey Loops, I'm going to pick up my phone. Ring, 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 ring. John Gruden's phone, who is this? I'm calling fucking John Gruden. Because I think that at the end of the day, a coach is who's to blame for these kind of things. Sure, the players should be held accountable. But a coach, this is on you. This is on coaching. Figure it out. Otherwise, bring me John Gruden. Call me crazy. I get he did some crazy things. I get he said some bad things. I like winning football games. Can you blame me? Probably can't. Last loser for the day before we wrap up today's show. Oh my God, Bryan Edwards. Oh my God. This is a player who I thought at one point would beat out Traquan Smith for his roster spot. The receiving stats are relatively similar. The production is around the same area. But what I will say right now, Bryan Edwards' PFF grades were a lot higher as a pass blocker. I don't care. Cut him. Cut him. 4 targets, 0 receptions. Cut him. You had multiple penalties throughout the night. Cut him. Not only did Bryan Edwards have multiple penalties, but he had 2 penalties on back-to-back plays. That would have been touchdowns. Maybe they weren't back-to-back plays, but point being, in the same drive, 2 penalties on 2 plays that were both touchdowns, and they didn't count because of this guy. Scissors are coming out. I'm sorry. Scissors got to come out. But Saints fans, let me know. Who is your biggest winner? Who is your biggest loser? My biggest winner, I got to say, man, I don't know. I mean, my biggest winner might be Malcolm Roach. He looked good today. He looked really good. I think a lot of Saints players looked really good today. And the 3 that I showed, that doesn't even mention Kendre Miller, who looked pretty solid today. Doesn't even mention Bryan Bresee, who had a nice fumble recovery today. That doesn't mention a lot of the players who really showed some good things. But let me know who's your biggest winner, and let me know who's your biggest loser. My biggest loser is either Dennis Allen or Bryan Edwards. That was ugly. That was ugly. Final score, 22-17. Saints win. I'll take it. A win is a win is a win. Going to eat some dubs tonight for sure. Man, when I tell you this shot right here is needed, I hope that the Saints can figure it out. Thank you guys for tuning in to today's postgame show. Thank you to everyone who tuned in to today's live stream for the show. And as always, Saints fans, y'all stay golden. We'll catch you next time.